In the mid-20th century, a chance discovery unraveled this ancient enigma, a collection of manuscripts untouched by the hands of men for millennia, known as the Dead Sea Scrolls. Among these cryptic texts, one scroll stood out, the War Scroll. Discovered in the shadowy recesses of Cave 1 at Qumran, the War Scroll was a treasure trove of forbidden knowledge. It spoke of a time beyond reckoning, of Israelites preparing for a war that would transcend mortal understanding. This wasn't just any war, it was a cataclysmic showdown between the sons of light and the sons of darkness. The War Scroll begins with a chilling declaration, setting the stage for the impending conflict. For the instructor, the rule of the war. The first attack of the sons of light shall be undertaken against the forces of the sons of darkness, the army of Belial. This wasn't just any skirmish, it was a 40-year saga of faith, strategy, and divine intervention. The first phase, spanning 6 years, was a time of testing and preparation. The sons of light, representing the faithful community of Israelites, gathered under the guidance of their priests and Levites. These spiritual leaders played a crucial role, not only preparing the soldiers, but also ensuring that the camp remained pure and ritually clean. It was said that purity was their secret weapon, a shield against the corrupting forces of the sons of darkness. The scroll details their organization and spiritual readiness. When they are marshalled for battle, they shall arrange the divisions, and the priests shall walk around and strengthen their hands for the battle, saying, "Be strong and valiant." Their enemies were a formidable alliance of evil, led by the shadowy figure of Belial, the embodiment of chaos and wickedness. The forces of darkness were not just human foes, they were bolstered by dark spiritual entities, creating an atmosphere thick with foreboding. The Israelites trained rigorously, mastering the art of war and honing their skills in secret. They fashioned weapons of swords, spears and shields, while also crafting trumpets and banners to coordinate their movements. These instruments were not mere tools, they were symbols of their unity and resolve. The early battles were skirmishes, probing encounters, where the sons of light tested the strength and tactics of their foes. They learned quickly, adapting and growing stronger, even as the forces of darkness loomed ever larger. As the war progressed into its second phase, spanning the next 29 years, the conflict intensified. The air was thick with tension, and the sands of the desert were stained with the blood of both the righteous and the wicked. The scroll provides vivid descriptions of the strategies and weaponry used. The sons of light were instructed to follow specific battle formations. They shall deploy before them 7 lines of battle, one behind the other. And with them shall be all the forces of the men of the rule of the cities of Israel. The sons of darkness, representing the Kittim of Ashur and other nations of wickedness, were relentless. They employed a wide array of military tactics, from ambushes to full frontal assaults. The scroll describes these battles with meticulous detail, painting a vivid picture of the strategies employed by both sides. The sons of light, ever disciplined, responded with carefully orchestrated formations. They positioned archers, cavalry and infantry with precision, relying on their faith and the guidance of their leaders to withstand the onslaught. But this was no mere mortal combat, it was a spiritual war. The sons of light believed that they were fighting not just for their lives but for the soul of the world. As casualties mounted, the stakes became even higher. The community clung to their belief in divine justice, knowing that they were not alone in this battle. They were guided by the Archangel Michael, the celestial commander of the heavenly host. Michael's presence was a beacon of hope, a promise of divine intervention that would tip the scales in their favour. The final 5 years of the war were the most harrowing, a period of darkness before the dawn. The forces of Belial seemed unstoppable, their legions pressing hard against the dwindling numbers of the sons of light. It was in these darkest moments that the prophecy foretold the ultimate climax. A passage within the War Scrolls states, "When the priests and Levites return, they shall stand on the battlefield, and facing the slain of the fallen, they shall praise the God of Israel." The War Scroll speaks of a dramatic celestial battle, where Michael and the angelic host descended from the heavens to join the fray. The forces of darkness were overwhelmed, struck down by supernatural forces wielding lightning and fire. And then, in a moment of unparalleled triumph, the tide turned. The sons of darkness were utterly vanquished, their evil swept away by a wave of divine power. The scroll describes this victory not just as a physical triumph, but as a cosmic realignment. The world was cleansed, and a new era of peace and righteousness dawned. The sons of light stood victorious, not just as survivors, but as the heralds of a new divine order. And there you have it, the most enigmatic of Dead Sea Scrolls, the War Scroll. If you enjoyed this content, you may also like this video on Plato's first-hand account of what Atlantis was actually like.